Welcome to the Marathon Medic podcast. My name's Amy and I'm a junior doctor and running coach based in London. In this series of the podcast, Running and Me, I'll be chatting with runners about why they started running and the benefits it's had to their health, both physically and mentally. On today's episode, I'm chatting to Alice Newstead. Alice is a London-based runner and she was set to run 3 of the World Abbott Marathon Majors this year: London, Boston and Berlin. Outside of all this training, Alice also runs with Good Gym, and she also has her own YouTube channel, Alice on a Run, where she shares running tips and vlogs. So Alice, just saying all of that, you've got a lot going on this year. Really impressive with all those races. And for me, I think since I've known you, you've always been doing marathons and actually have no idea how you started or when you got into it.
Sure. So I started properly running in 2016. But growing up, I was never really good at any sports. Like, I tried quite a lot of different ones, normal sports. We even had a water sports holiday, and I couldn't do wind sailing or anything like that. But one thing which, thinking back now, I guess shows that I was kind of naturally maybe built for running. I didn't really pay attention to it at the time, but we did a 5K at school in maybe year 12, and I remember running with kind of one of the girls who was quite fit, and it being not easy, but I think I got under 30 minutes, having never been active up to that point at all. I didn't even want to walk home from school. I would get my mum to pick me up. So that kind of, I guess, shows that I maybe have somewhat of a natural ability for running. And then in uni, I slowly started going to the gym, exercising a bit, running on the treadmill. And then when I went to Texas for study abroad, for some reason in my head I was like, oh, I'm going to join the running club. And then I joined the running club and then just started running. Signed up for my first half marathon after I'd done a 5-mile run. And then, yeah, that was it. Now I run a lot.
I was going to say that's what surprises me most, that you say it was only a few years ago, because if I see you on Strava, you're basically doing exercise every day. So to have gone from saying you wouldn't even walk home from school to that is quite impressive.
Yeah, I guess it's just good. It's nice to be good at something.
And I think the running club element as well, as you said, you went to Texas and didn't know anyone. Was it motivated by the sport more or meeting people?
I guess meeting people, and just because it felt like it was quite a cool thing to do, like going to Texas, and I knew it was quite cool, and just the idea of running around like streets of Austin seemed just quite good to me.
I always think whenever I go on holiday, the first thing I want to do is go for a run, because you see so much more.
Yeah.
And you see places that you wouldn't see otherwise. And I think some people think it's crazy to go on holiday and then the first thing you do is put your running shoes on, but it is the best way, especially when you're going somewhere new and getting to meet people and the place as well. So one of the reasons I asked you to come onto the podcast today was because I think around 6 months ago or so, I saw on Strava that you'd very openly and honestly just written a post about how you'd had a bad mental health day. And I was just wondering if you could share what happened on that day and what was the story behind that post.
Sure. So running as an OCD has kind of helped to a certain extent, but that day it just didn't quite work out. I have OCD mainly my main form of OCD is like cleanliness OCD, which is like just like germophobia kind of, but compulsions around it, like hand washing and stuff like that. Also, I just generally have, I don't know if it's quite anxiety, because I haven't really explored that with a mental health professional, but in certain situations, if stuff's a bit overwhelming, it's kind of just like introversion. If there's a lot of sounds and things like that, I can get a bit, I'm not sure the word, but like frustrated or irritable. And also I have kind of general anxiety in terms of social stuff. Like, I worry a lot about how I'm perceived. That's mostly from some past experiences, like through my life, but also just, I guess, having OCD probably doesn't help with it. So on that day, I was running with Midnight Runners. They do a 6-mile run on a Tuesday where they run along the river, and every mile or so they stop and do something like a plank or some sit-ups, something like that. And also the way they run around is it's quite energetic. They have like a speaker, backpack, things like that, so it's quite loud. So I was feeling a little irritable in terms of that. They caught me, I guess, at a bad moment. And then at each stop, we would have to get on the floor, and that's just something that my OCD wasn't allowing me to do at all. But everyone was kind of doing it, so that's where the social stuff fed in. I was like, I didn't want to just be standing there while everyone else was on the floor, and it was getting a bit much, so I just kind of removed myself from the situation. They ran past, I think it was the National Theatre. There was a big sign up for a play, and I just stopped at the sign and hid there until they'd all gone past, and then just slowly jogged to the station and went home.
But I think it's so good that you've identified everything on that day that contributed to your OCD, yet you still are able to turn up to those clubs and that event knowing that could happen.
Yeah.
So it's really brave of you to even join these clubs knowing that you might have problems, and then talking about it afterwards and being able to put on Strava that, actually I did need to step out.
I think it's good. It's been helpful to be able to be honest about it, because everyone at good gym kind of knows that, and they may see me wearing gloves when we're doing a plank, but because that's something I've shared, I don't feel awkward about it anymore. And I'd like to get to a stage where I don't have OCD and that's not something that affects me negatively, but if I can manage it and have it as something that I can make part of my life without it making my life really hard, then that's better in the meantime.
Yeah, I completely agree, and thank you so much for talking about it. So just in case anyone isn't too sure what OCD is, you explained it really well, but I guess it applies differently to other people, and they'll have different obsessions and compulsions. But OCD is obsessive compulsive disorder. The obsessions are the thoughts and the compulsions are the acts. So the thoughts are intrusive, they're distressing, you can't get rid of them. And then the compulsions are the acts that you try to do to negate those thoughts and reduce the amount of distress you have around those obsessive thoughts. And those thoughts can be very different for everyone. So as you mentioned, cleanliness is one thing for you, and that springs to mind for a lot of people. So I was just wondering for you if you'd found that your running had helped you at all?
Kind of on a roundabout wavelength it has. Running has kind of made me a lot more confident. For some of the things I mentioned before, I didn't get on very great socially at school, so I didn't have a lot of confidence. And having something that I was good at has just given me a lot more ease with myself, not necessarily body image, but just feeling that I have some kind of purpose, i.e. getting better at running and being good and being quite good at it and talking to people about it, and they give me positive feedback. That's definitely helped my confidence. And so I am open to talking about it, which helps too. And it's not... I'd say that the mental aspect of my OCD is made better by running, and the way it affects me is a lot easier. I wouldn't necessarily say that my OCD has got any less in terms of the number of compulsions, because the issue with my cleanliness one is that it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. If I haven't thought of it yet, it's not a problem. But once I've thought of something not being clean, then it's pretty much not clean forever.
Okay.
So it's an issue when people say oh, you have OCD. Do you find this dirty? They think they're being nice, but if the answer is no, then that's now on the list.
Okay.
And as time has gone on, my OCD hasn't necessarily got worse, but just like more things are added to the list, and it's to the point where at work I'm like opening the fridge with a tissue rather than touching it.
Okay.
But
so is it almost like
help.
People put ideas in your mind and then that triggers an obsessive thought?
Yeah. And that's like the problem I've had with therapies is I think I need something, maybe like medicine at this point, or something more subconscious like hypnotherapy.
Okay.
Just because I don't think, although it's illogical like all OCD is, it's based in logic. Like the things that I think are dirty are. BBC News will do an article like, oh, the touchscreen in McDonald's has this many germs, like it's got E. coli and all that on it. Like it does, but most people don't care.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter that much. And I just want to get to that stage where I don't care, but I don't see how I'm going to do that without some kind of
so I guess running has been beneficial for your overall well-being.
Yeah, I think without running, I may have got worse in other ways, and maybe some of the more depression side of OCD would have come out.
Yeah.
Whereas it's mostly just, it affects my life in like a nuisance way. And if there's a situation I put in which is overwhelming for OCD, then that will cause like not really an attack, but I don't know if a better word. It will cause like kind of a panic. But yeah, running has definitely helped my general well-being.
Yeah, so I guess an adjunct, something you can do as well as the actual treatment for OCD.
I know there's I can't remember her name, but there's a woman who wrote a book about running with OCD.
Okay.
I think she's married to someone on TV.
I have to look
it up, but yeah.
I guess we kind of touched on it before, in that going to that situation where there was a running club that was loud and you were having to go on the ground not worsened your OCD as a condition, but made you worse on that day.
Yeah, it's a trigger.
Have you found anything else about running actually makes your OCD worse?
Not so much my OCD. I think Strava, I really like having Strava and being able to use it. Sometimes, though, it's not great for kind of worrying what people think, because if I have a day where I kind of take it easy, there's always like 10 people who've done a really long run, or they've done like hill training or something like that. And then I start worrying, like, do they think that I'm not running very well? Or if I accidentally pause my run and have to upload it in 2 lots, I'm like, oh no, what if I'm annoying everyone, clogging up their feed? Okay. But it's not too bad. I think running generally, other than the fact that sometimes there are situations where I'm in a big group of people and if I act weirdly, it might be noticed. It's not really a negative effect.
It's so funny that you said that about Strava, because I thought you were going down a completely different route. In that I listened to a podcast the other week, and it mentioned a few Strava behaviours that identified a lot with me, checking all the stats and really overanalyzing it and becoming a bit obsessive with that. And then when I read lots about how over-exercisers often have a lot of obsessive compulsive traits. So I was thinking, you're about to say it can get quite obsessive having an app with all your information. I'd never appreciated that you'd be worried what other people were thinking, because I guess for me, if I put something up and I see someone else has done a longer run than me, a harder run, I'm never thinking what they think about me. I'm always thinking, I haven't worked hard enough today. And I think it's really easy to get trapped in that. So that's what I was thinking maybe you were going to talk about, but actually it's a completely different spin.
My OCD and kind of obsessive nature has changed over the years. So I'm kind of glad that I didn't have Strava a few years ago.
Yeah.
In uni, I had an eating disorder, basically. And that if I'd had Strava then, it would have really negatively affected me, the stats. I had a Fitbit, and I think I only had it for a couple of months because I lost it on the bus, which was probably the best thing that could have happened, because I was right in the middle of the eating disorder, and I would just walk around the house for like hours.
Okay, because it was a number that you had to reach in your head.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So in some ways I feel like I have progressed a bit with that the fact that I don't have that aspect of kind of obsessions. I also used to have stuff like worry. I walk around my room and check all the plugs, that kind of thing.
Okay.
So I've had other forms of OCD that are now gone. Whether that's because of running, I don't really know.
Has the cleanliness aspect always been there, or is that a new development as the other obsessions have disappeared?
I suppose, yeah, maybe, but I don't know if that's just because there's more things added to the list, so it's just kind of taken up my mental energy.
Yeah. No, I can imagine how hard it is when, say, you live in a city like London as well, and you're constantly, like you mentioned, noise and being around people, and how there's always going to be something there that you really have to manage. But I think it's great that you come to all these clubs and you're so open about it. And you've recently set up a YouTube channel as well, which I wanted to talk to you about.
Sure.
It's called Alice on a Run, and there's a few episodes up already. So I was just wondering what your motivation for doing that was, and what gave you the idea.
I've always quite liked vlogs, all the vloggers.
Okay.
But I didn't have anything to talk about, really. But now I've started running, I was like thinking about it a bit more. I know someone who has a YouTube channel, does quite well with it. Also this year I'm doing the marathons, as you said, and I don't really take pictures. So it would be good to have a log via video of that. Yeah. And I do plan on talking about my OCD and being kind of open. The running YouTubers they're a lot of them are men, or they're fitness influencers. So I thought it might be good for some people who think that you have to be like that to be good at running or to have fun with running, to see me who's slightly a little bit awkward. When I do talk about my OCD, there'll be that as well, and hopefully I'll be able to help some people in that way.
I think so, and I think it's so important that we don't think a runner has to be somebody that gets all these amazing times. It's literally anyone that puts on their running shoes and goes out for a run.
Yeah.
And my brother actually mentioned the other day he was looking on YouTube for running reviews of some shoes, and he said to me, Amy, there is no one on here that's female. It's all men doing reviews.
Yeah.
And, whether that's something you do or not, it would be nice to have a female role model that's kind of running as part of life with her normal job, and seeing how you get into amazing races as well. You're doing so well. So that's Alice on a Run, and you should definitely go and subscribe to her YouTube channel. Another thing I wanted to ask you about is in January you did, I can't say this very well, Veganuary. Yeah. And again, wondering if you did that in connection with your running to see if it would improve, because a lot of runners are vegan, or whether there was another reason.
Not really. I guess I was curious to see if my running performance would go down more than anything. Okay. Because people always talk about protein and things like that. I do know people who run and are vegan, but that's always, I guess, a worry. But I had a lot of fun with it. It was remarkably easy to do. Most places were bringing out vegan versions of everything.
I guess you chose the right ones to do it.
And I didn't feel... So the first week I was a bit tired, but I think that was because I'd just been taking out the meat rather than replacing it. So I just upped my portions and I was fine. I don't think I was getting around the same times as normal. So yeah, it was quite fun.
How have you been eating since that finished? Did you find you're more vegan now, or have you just gone straight back to normal?
No, I'm definitely more vegan now. I don't want to be fully like that just because I don't think restricting myself is a good idea based on my history. But yeah, I've been having this week I'm having all veggie meals at least throughout the week. I stopped eating beef last year, and doing veganuary meant I bought some of the not corn, but it was just kind of, I think it was a mushroomy, lentil-y mix. There's one at Waitrose that's really nice. So now, and that tasted really nice and gave me the feeling of beef, the warmth.
Yeah.
So if you have a spag bol.
Sometimes you need it, especially after a run, you need something that kind of fills you up and makes you feel warm inside. Yeah.
So now I can have that, and it's vegan. So yeah, it's definitely been very good.
Yeah, there's the running club, isn't there? Vegan runners, and I'm assuming they're all vegan. I'm not sure.
I think it's a requirement, surely.
But I admire you for doing it. I tried a vegan week once and realised that I hadn't even been vegan for a week because I'd ordered corn and it had egg in it.
Yeah.
So I've never even done a day vegan, I don't think, but it's good to try. Great. So I'm just going to end by asking you if you can, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you if you could give me one word that would sum up how running has changed your life.
I'd say ease.
Okay.
Not so much confidence, but it's just made me a bit more easygoing about a lot of things. I guess being a bit fitter has improved my life. It's a lot easier to do whatever I want. If someone wants to go and be active at the weekend, I don't even have to think about it. And yeah, it's just kind of eased my life a little bit, made me more chilled with myself.
That's good. Do you think it's because for me, I always find, because I'm so focused on running and that has a big importance in my life, I then stop stressing about other things that are going on.
Yeah, you've got to make sure you toe the fine line of not using running as a medicine in the way that it's really bad if you miss a session.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, it can definitely help me kind of refocus myself if I'm stressed out about something. I know that I can, if something at work is hard, I'm going to be running home and that will be just a nice half hour with a podcast.
Is that what you listen to when you run?
Yeah,
is it always
mostly.
Podcasts?
Mostly. Every now and then I'm in the mood for music, but you have to catch me at just the right mood.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm the opposite. I'm very much music focused. Because I think if I am too into a podcast, it slows me down. Probably great for long runs. But if I'm going on a harder run, I need horrendous music, beaty music that I wouldn't usually listen to. So I'd usually wrap up there and end the podcast, but today is a little bit different. There's a part 2, and that's because Alice had so many great races lined up, which we now unfortunately know have been cancelled or postponed. So I thought it would be a good idea to catch up with her. We did this safely, socially distanced through the power of Zoom. So next up is Alice telling us a little bit about how she's been getting on since the pandemic. So Alice, we chatted now about 2 months ago and life has changed a lot since then. So I was just hoping we could catch up and you could tell me how you've been coping since all the races that you had prepared for have been cancelled and what you've been doing instead.
Yeah, I've got 4 races booked and no idea when they're going to happen. I guess I'm just trying to tick over. That's all we can really do, just trying to have fun with it. I took 10 days off running a few weeks ago just to freshen up my body.
Yeah, I guess it's quite a nice opportunity to almost do what you like with running, be that have the rest that you never allow yourself, or push yourself harder for your own personal challenges, or do all the challenges that are circulating on the internet at the moment.
Oh yeah.
You've done a few yourself, haven't you? Could you just tell me, I think the first one I saw that you did was the new London Marathon challenge, which is the 2.6 challenge.
Yeah, the 2.6 challenge was where you just had, the brief was 2.6 and you could kind of do whatever you wanted with that. So I did 26 exercises, indoor workout exercises for 2.6 minutes each, and then a 2.6 mile run, just to kind of show that you can do stuff indoors and it's still a good way to be active. I think, to be honest, a lot of the reason why they were doing the 2.6 was to stop people running the London Marathon route and try and distract us.
And I think you've been quite strategic with your running and have been running at funny times of the day and documenting what that's been like. So could you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. So while I'm super glad that we've got all these new people to the sport, the routes that I normally go in are quite busy now, and it becomes a bit stressful having to weave in and out, and it doesn't feel like I'm being particularly socially distant. We can all blame each other, so we won't go into that, but it's just I found I wanted to try and find ways of getting away from people. So I did a run when it was raining, which I'd really recommend because as soon as there's bad weather, the street's clear. I ran through Rotherhithe Tunnel, which was also fine. It's like mostly cars though, and not many people go through it like walking or running. I found it fine, but if there's a lot of cars, I imagine it's not very good for your lungs.
Just a channel of pollution.
It's fine. And what else? I did 4 a.m. and I ran indoors, and I did that last night as well. There's like an indoor relay that I did as well, where I just ran around my table in my living room.
I feel like people are going to have really strange running injuries after this.
Yeah.
Not the typical, foot injuries. Are going to be like, I bashed my elbow on the table and tripped up the stairs.
Exactly.
And how have you been coping just in terms of your mental health, in terms of running? And obviously the media kind of tells us all about this virus, and it's basically all anyone talks about now. And then going out into a park, let's say Greenwich Park, which is very, very busy at the moment. You mentioned that it kind of distracts from the running and there's a lot of people around. How's it been affecting you?
Yeah, I'm not great. I've always been, in recent years, quite agitated anyway when there's a lot of people. I don't know if it's linked to my OCD, but it's also just another thing. So that hasn't been great. But I'm kind of coping, and the OCD itself, it's not like, I think a lot of people would assume that because there's a virus going around that I would be more worried in that terms, but my OCD is a lot more just like germs in general. I don't know if I said about it last time I spoke, but it's just generally the idea of germs. So yeah, I don't think of it as coronavirus. It's all exactly the same as pre-virus. But then the issue is that because I'm kind of in one place all the time, that's not very good for my OCD. When I move around a bit more, that's like to different places, then it kind of distracts my mind a bit. So it hasn't been that great. But I just got a therapist as of last week. So I'm excited about that.
Congratulations. So is that going to be virtually to begin with?
Yes. We'll see how it goes.
No, I think that's a really positive step in the right direction. And I think it's really interesting how you described that your OCD has been affected, I guess, more by the time you have on your hands and the time to think and not being able to do your usual activities more than the actual virus itself.
You said that people are talking about it in articles. There's loads of articles about like saying stuff that's dirty and stuff like that. That's never good, like, because if I haven't thought about it, it might not necessarily be on my list. So if there's something that, like, there's an article I see and it's like, oh, you can't touch this, I'm like, okay, great, let's add that to the list. So I just try and avoid those.
It's so hard to avoid these things though, and it's almost irrelevant, those articles, as in those things were dirty before, they're dirty now. It's not really pandemic related.
Just more of the articles.
You'll be pleased to know that you mentioned a book last time, Jog On. I've actually got the book now, and I've just started it last night, so I'm enjoying it so far.
Oh, cool. Is that Bella McKee, is it?
Bella McKee, yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming back to speak with me and just updating me on everything that's happened over the last 2 months, because it's probably the biggest changes we've ever seen in our lifetime. So it's good to hear from you.
I was listening to your other episodes, and they're funny, like everyone's talking about all the stuff they've got coming up this year, and I'm like, oh,
I know. They were obviously all but one was recorded before this happened, so it's all a lot of excitement about what's coming up, and things have changed. So I thought it would be nice to kind of speak to someone during pandemic to find out how running has changed. Cool. Great, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me again.
So that's it. That's the final episode in this series of the podcast. I'd just like to thank Alice, who spoke to me not once but twice. And if you'd like to follow along with Alice's running journey, then you can search Alice on a Run on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the new podcast releases and blog posts, then follow along using the handle @marathonmedic on Instagram, or you can visit my website marathonmedic.com.